How should we live? What is a good human life? In this video, I'm going to give you several different answers or theories to how we should live to live well. Let's take a step back and think about the questions themselves before looking at the answers. How should we live? The word should is normative. When you say that you should do something or you should not do something, you're conjuring up this idea that there are standards or norms according to which something is good or bad, right or wrong to do. The question, how should we live, assumes that there is a normal way or a standard way of living, and then the question is asking, what is that way? What is a good human life? How many answers are there to that question? Is this going to be subjective, meaning depending on what kind of human you are, your age or your race or your ethnicity or the time you're living or the place you're living, then there would be a good way for you to live? Or is there a universal or absolute way that all humans as a species should live if they want to live a good life, to live well? Lots of philosophers throughout history around the globe have written answers thoroughly about how exactly we should live in order to live a good life. Taoism and Confucianism are two different philosophies that have a lot in common. They are very popular in China. And when you study a world religions book, you might find Confucianism and Taoism, sometimes spelled with a D, in those world religions book. However, there is no supernatural idea of a God that reveals to humanity how they should live. Instead, Confucianism and Taoism have us looking inward through philosophical reflection and meditation to find out the real way we should be living, the good way, the right way that we should be living. If you want to look up the Asian philosophies, note that there was never a man named Confucius. This is his Western name. So these questions could be answered religiously, whether within a religion that has revelation or with a religion that's more of a philosophy. Albert Camus gives us absurdism, the myth of Sisyphus, who has to push a boulder up a mountain every single day just to watch it roll back down, and he just repeats this action every day. And the question becomes, is this a good life? Is this guy happy? Camus, Sartre, and Kierkegaard are all philosophers who are called existentialists. In existentialism, life doesn't have meaning. There is no good human life that's absolute and objective. Instead, you can give life meaning. These three give you as an individual complete autonomy and agency, telling you to take the responsibility to make your life good, to give it purpose. John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham like math. They enjoy a sort of calculus. According to utilitarianism, a good life, the right way to live, how you should live your life, is constantly asking yourself how you could maximize pleasure for the greatest number of people who you care about. And Epicurus is a famous hedonist. Hedonism is the idea that you should value pleasure, that how you should live should be oriented around what pleases you. That's what a good human life is. It's a pleasurable one. Aristotle, who came before, has a theory that we call virtue ethics, and according to Nicomachean Ethics, which is the name of the book, Aristotle tells us that a good human life, how we should live, is one that brings out virtues and good character. Now, if you look at Aristotle's virtue ethics, it sounds a lot like the golden mean that you would find in Asian philosophy, especially when you look at a book called the Analects. Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, the famous emperor, and Seneca are known as Stoics. Ooh, that's a lot. I'm going to erase this and then make you a really pretty diagram so that we look at these and talk about Karl Marx in more depth. So let's look at some theories on how to live a good life. In Aristotle's virtue ethics, a good life is a life that involves a person who has developed virtues, excellence in character. Eudaimonia is a key word here. That's your goal in virtue ethics. It's something like true well-being as a human being. It's the way you should live your life. It's the goal. How you get there is by developing virtues. In other words, excellence in character. A totally different answer comes from the Stoicism of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca. Instead, the goal is not well-being, but something like an inner peace that comes from not trying to get something that you're never going to get. What you do in Stoicism is master your desires and your emotions. These are the things that are within your control. These are the things that you can master. Stoicism has you distinguish the differences between your inner world, which you can control, and the outer world, which you cannot control. Stoicism promises a good, happy, peaceful life through reason and meditation. If you look up the Meditations, you might find Marcus Aurelius's writing, but you might also find René Descartes' writing, which is also called the Meditations. Hedonism is a value theory. There's ethical hedonism, there's psychological hedonism. Here, the answer of hedonism tells us that we should live a life to live a good life by seeking out pleasure. How do you live a pleasurable life? The good life, according to hedonists, is the life that is free from pain. Utilitarianism is very similar to hedonism and to egoism. Hedonism just tells you that you should value pleasure, that hedon is the value of pleasure. But pleasure for who? If it's just pleasure for you, then that hedonistic theory is called egoism. Egoism tells you that a good life is a pleasurable life. Pleasurable for who? For you. Unlike utilitarianism, which also hedon values pleasure, but it's pleasure that you're seeking for a wider set of people, not just you. So unlike egoism, which is a theory that tells you to seek pleasure for yourself, unlike hedonism, which just tells you to seek pleasure, utilitarianism tells you to seek pleasure for the majority of your community. So what you're supposed to do when you act, assuming that you can choose your choices, your actions, is to benefit the majority. And by benefit, we mean to make it that they're less pain and more in pleasure. Your life, according to utilitarianism, is good in accordance to how much you are benefiting the majority. Now, that's a very specific answer, and it depends on who's in your moral community. Who do you count when you're trying to figure out whose pleasure you should be increasing? What does pleasure mean? All of that is a bunch of calculus that you need to do to figure out if your life is good and if you're living a good life. Existentialism offers a totally different answer. It says that the goodness of your life is not determined by any kind of calculus. You are going to create purpose or meaning because life doesn't have meaning. There is not a reason you were born. Instead, you were born and then you're going to give it reason. There's not a purpose for which you were created. Instead, now that you exist, go out and make it meaningful. Give it purpose. In Taoism, there's the path, the way. And this is very mysterious because the path that can be taught to you is not the path. Taoism tells you that you should act and live without trying too much. Be flexible, but not forceful. Be like water, adapt to whatever is around you. This is the concept, the action of inaction. Is this a religious way of looking at life? If you require some supernatural being in the religion, then this is not religious at all. Instead, if we wanted to have a religion here, we would write Christianity or Islam. And both of those tell you that a good life is the exact same thing. It's the life that God tells you to live. In religion that is monotheistic, like Christianity and Islam, the good life is the life that's in accordance with God and His will. Be free from exploitation. Be free from oppression. Marxism tells you that the way to live a good life is to live a life where you are creating and producing and making out of love, not out of necessity. According to Marxism, if you're working out of force, you are alienated from the whole thing. But instead, the good life is a life that involves creation and production for the sake of it. All 7 of these are different answers to the question of how we should live in order to live a good life. Can I do it alone? In other words, can I achieve a good life by myself? Can I by myself live a good life? In Aristotle's virtue ethics, you developing a good character is something that you do by yourself, but other people from the community are required in order to bring out those excellent moral traits like friendship and courage. So you need a community so that you can stand out as a good individual in a relationship with those community members. That one's complicated. In Stoicism, yes, you can do it by yourself. You can go up some ivory tower and think and reason and be well, mastering your desires and your emotions. In hedonism, yes, absolutely. You can find simple pleasures, avoid pain, and you will live a good life. You cannot live a good life by yourself according to utilitarianism. You need to be in communion with others, and through that community, through that relationship with others, your benefiting the majority is what gives you value. Existentialism, yes, you can do it by yourself. In fact, Sartre and Camus would have us think about our agency as pretty radical. That freedom as an individual to give ourselves whatever meaning we decide for ourselves, that individualness is kind of the point in existentialism. Taoism is yes and no. Oh, and that's kind of interesting because when you look at the golden mean from Taoism, it matches virtue ethics. You can be a good person all by yourself, but the point is to stand in relationship with other people and to do your role well, to be excellent in your position as the older brother or in your position as the friend. We have certain duties that are upon us because of the relationships we're in. And so there's a collective and an individual focus. In Marxism, you can and can't. The point is for you to not be enslaved or oppressed or exploited by others and to focus on yourself, to be sincere and to be authentic. But it's a very social system at large. And so it's the collective that allows the individuals to be free and to live well. These are just a few theories on the right way to live. And remember, there might not be one right way to live.